Welcome, Jet fans, to another episode of the Jets Life podcast. It is a game day special, preseason, but still, nonetheless, it is game day. The Jets open up their preseason slate against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tonight, and got a big show to go here. I'm going to go over some of the game things I'll be watching for, and the things we should all probably be analyzing as we're watching this team for the first time since early January. So we're talking about almost 8 months plus at this point. So obviously, there's been training camp. There's been a lot of stories coming out about how the Jets offense has looked, the up and down nature of Geno Smith. But obviously, this is going to be the first time this season we're going to see this entire team on the field for the first time. And I'm going to break down all the key takeaways that I'm going to be watching for as we go into this first game of the season. If you could, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate you. If you're in the chat, hit that subscribe button and you'll be able to start chatting with other Jet fans as well. So important to get on there. I'll go right into this whole thing here with you all. The first key takeaway or key to the game day: clean bill of health. This is the most important thing. Obviously, this is something you look for every single week as you're going through the season. But one of the most annoying things that tends to happen, and it happens to every single team in the league, it's not just the Jets, obviously, preseason games, these games that don't matter, a player gets injured, and it's like, oh, why was he in there? At the end of the day, these players have to play, whether it's in the preseason or regular season. Players are going to get hurt. Timing of it is never perfect. But obviously, the most important thing we're going to have in this game is to make sure that all these players leave with as clean of a bill of health as possible, play as limited reps as possible to where they are still getting that in-game experience. That's the most important part here in this entire situation. Number two, big one here. Aaron Glenn, second year as a head coach, a pivotal moment for him as a head coach for the New York Jets. It's going to be very important that we are able to identify his identity and has his identity spread to this team. Last season, there were probably a handful of games you can really point at and say, okay, I see what he's trying to accomplish here. I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers game, although the defense was terrible in that game. You saw an offensive identity. The Cincinnati game was probably a big one for us from a standpoint of the Jets being able to establish the ground game. Again, the defense was not what we wanted it to be last season at all. So that's the part that I think really needs to hit that next stride. He's a former defensive coordinator coming in. He's going to be calling the defensive shots this year. Has that defensive pedigree that we saw with Detroit. Is it going to start to translate over to the New York Jets? That is probably the biggest key for him personally, is to make sure that we see the vision that all of us have been talking about for months and months and months, if not over a year, from the time that he was originally hired. Can we identify that he is actually making some sort of change with this team? And probably the best way to be able to see that is, how does this defense come out? Do they come out able to stop the run, playing hard-nosed, attacking the football? Obviously, it's a preseason game, so we're not going to see the full-fledged, the Jets aren't going to go out there and they're not going to be coming out with their best game plan possible. It's usually just a lot of base, just kind of go get through the rhythm, go with the flow. There's no game plan, obviously. No game plan, but they have already practiced against the Buccaneers a few times already. So while there's no game plan, you would expect some sort of, something to have come from those joint practices. Maybe we get a little bit of a better stride here with this team. A lot we need to see here from Aaron Glenn. The penalties last season were a bit of a problem. That all needs to be held under control. Everything from coming out of the tunnel and looking flat. These are the things that as Jet fans we became very concerned of from Aaron Glenn in year one. We need to see in this game, has some of those things changed in this first preseason game? Obviously, a lot of time to go from between now and the regular season. This is our first chance to really see, have things turned around? Are things changing? Number 3, I focus more on the defensive side with number 2, but obviously, you still want to see some sort of established identity here. But the biggest thing on offense, and something that this team has lacked for so long, is the inability to just look like adults is what I put down here. This offense has struggled for so long of just doing the simple things and doing the simple things consistently. We've had many of games from the Zach Wilson times to even before him with Sam Darnold to an extent. We've had many games where it just looked like first downs were 1st and 20 every single time we had it. It just seems so much more difficult for this offense to just establish themselves, get a few yards in these small spurts. It just always seems so much more difficult for the Jets. And then you put on Red Zone Channel, or you watch Sunday Night Football, or whatever have you. However you go about your Sundays of watching the NFL, you flip over after the Jet game is over, or by halftime if you're tired of watching the game. However you handle it, you switch over, and it just looks like a completely different animal when other teams are playing. It just looks normal. It looks like two teams that play the same sport playing against each other. Some teams win possessions, some teams don't. It just looks like a sport that you can watch, and watching two teams compete. Too many times when the Jets are playing on offense, it just did not seem that way. Especially when you have guys like Garrett Wilson off the field, like he was last year because of his injuries. It can't be like that. The Jets have got to establish themselves as an offense that can do the simple things right. Because let's be real, next season, most likely the Jets are going to be bringing in a rookie quarterback, is the expectation. And if that's the case, you cannot put the guy in a situation where he's going to be asked to turn this offense from what it's always been for far too long into an offense that can establish things. If you can start building that right now, start establishing that, that normalcy with the young roster, what you'd be potentially doing next season is hopefully starting with a veteran quarterback. And then when the time comes right for that rookie to step in and be your starter, hopefully long-term, he's coming into a situation where everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody knows how to do this. Now it's just you coming in and just doing the things that you're being asked to do. I don't know the last time that Jets have really had a situation like that or an infrastructure like that for a rookie quarterback. Maybe Mark Sanchez coming in as a rookie. You had a pretty solid offensive line foundation. They started plucking away at receivers from other teams. They brought in Santonio Holmes. They already had Cotry. They brought in Braylon Edwards. So they started piecemealing the supporting cast around him. Had a good ground game, had a good running game, good offensive line. There was some established identity there already by the time Sanchez got there. That's why the Jets were able to take that next step, even with Mark Sanchez and his issues as a primary signal caller. Rookie year threw 20-plus interceptions, and they still made the playoffs, still got to the conference championship game, and did it again the following year. An established core that was already in place. That's what really needs to happen here for this team is offense just needs to get damn normal. It's been far too long that this offense has just been struggling mightily. Dane, appreciate you for joining the chat. Let's fucking go. Jets are playing football today. It's preseason football, also known as non-alcoholic beer, but nonetheless it is football, and you got to be excited about it. Okay, key to the game, number 4. David Bailey show. I'm going to go with the whole defensive line here and this whole front seven to be realistic here. But obviously, David Bailey being the second overall pick, first time seeing him under the lights. This is probably the key to the game. The thing I'm watching the most out of everything in this game is, let's be real. A lot of Jet fans were split on the decision with David Bailey. Personally, myself wanted Arvell Reese, also liked Ruben Bain. David Bailey was probably my third option out of the 3 guys, but nonetheless, he's here. He's here now, and for anybody out there, I wanted Arvell Reese. This guy's a bust. He's a bum. I'm done with this guy. Like that is the most ridiculous way of handling the situation. he's here. He has talent. And so far, from what you're hearing from all reports, the talent is real. And whether he's the best defensive player in this class or just a really, really good one, does it really matter at the end of the day? The Jets have been a team that has struggled to bring in key players no matter where they're picking in the draft order. 2022, the year they got Garrett, Sauce, and Brees, that was a key draft. Outside of that, they've kind of had their struggles finding players. Membu looks like a solid prospect. Olu looks pretty solid. They've hit in areas. Will McDonald looks like a player that maybe, on his last year with the team, unless he has a bounce up year. David Bailey is our guy. And I personally, like I said, was an Arvell Reese guy. But David Bailey's here, and I like what I'm hearing from him. Now it's up to him to show what he's got. Yes, at the end of the day, everybody who wanted Arvell Reese could be 100% right. But sometimes I just feel like we just want to be right more than just root for the players that are in our uniforms. And I'm rooting for the guy that's in our uniforms, and that's how I'll go about it. Even though I didn't buy the offseason hype, Braylon Allen is still high on my want-to-see list, although they might get 1.5 series, so it's more so next week. Braylon Allen is another player I'd like to see as well, because let's be real, ever since he came in, all we've heard nonstop is that this guy is going to be your short yardage guy, 240 pounds, whatever. He's going to be a little bulldozer type of guy, get those tough yards. And all I've seen out of him, and yes, he's still very, very young, so I'm not going to sit here and say we've seen enough out of him. I think he is going to be our number 2 running back. That's how it's shaping out. I don't see Isaiah Davis leapfrogging him. It's going to be Braylon Allen as number 2. Breece Hall is going to get a majority of the play. Obviously, the Jets paid him handsomely, the 3-year, $40 million, $45 million, whatever it was. But Braylon Allen is going to be asked to do something this year, and I think this is the year we really, really need to see something. Obviously, last year was cut short with injuries, but even in the limited time that we've seen him, how many times do you see this guy go out there in a 3rd and short, 4th and short, and just get stuffed at the line of scrimmage? That's one of two things: either this offensive line that we've been hyping up as moving in the right direction and all that kind of jazz isn't doing their job and creating the holes to get this guy the extra yardage, or he's just not. Maybe he's just not that short yardage guy that we've all kind of hoped that he would be. I hope he is, and I hope that I'm 100% wrong on this guy, but I just haven't seen it yet. And yeah, agree. I do want to see something out of this guy, even as early as this game. Can we just see that everything we've been told for the last couple of years, that when he's playing in training camp, that he's got that speed, got that burst? Can we see that in a game for once? I think the only time in a game that I really feel like, oh, this guy looks like he's got something, was when I saw him live in Tennessee a couple years ago in Aaron Rodgers' second year, his first year. That was the only real game that I saw this guy that had some sort of establishment in the running game. So I do want to see more out of him as well. I want to see it. Yeah, come on. Can this guy move the line of scrimmage a little bit? Can he push it forward, even if it's a yard or two? If I see some cojones, some meat, going down on a player and just pushing them forward, I just haven't seen that. I don't know if I've seen that contact, that just plowing a guy forward. I just don't know. I haven't seen it. Again, still very, very young. I think he's 22 years old, maybe he's 23 years old now, into his 3rd year of his contract, his rookie contract. Again, we just need to see that ability on the field, see him move someone forward. Pause. I caught myself. Yep. We don't want to see him doing that on a football field. Alrighty. I digress. So yeah, David Bailey show. Just want to see progress at his defensive line. Jets were terrible against the run last year. It was not a good situation overall. Allowing teams to run the football. A lot of people say the secondary played way better down the stretch last year, and a major reason why the secondary played better is because teams weren't really throwing the football, because the Jets were just allowing teams to just run down their throats the whole time. this is a situation here where, the Jets have really gone out there and, we've talked about all off season long. They've raised the floor of this team, of this entire roster. Defensive line, Onyemata, Osai, although we won't see him today because he just came back from PUP list this week. David Bailey, you invested a high draft pick in the defensive line at edge. Devondre Sweat, again, another player we're not going to see today, but the Jets have heavily invested in that front seven. Demario Davis also coming in along. So while David Bailey is the guy that we're going to have all of our eyes on because of the nature of where he was selected, first game action, I really want to see what this entire defensive line and this whole front seven kind of shakes out to be at this point in time. Because, again, the Jets struggled last year. Jamian Sherwood was thrust into being the number one linebacker on this team. Just didn't seem to be his ideal role. He kind of needed that CJ Mosley next to him. Now they have Demario Davis. Demario Davis, another player you want to see. We know historically he's been a guy that plays a lot of snaps, plays a lot of games, can be your enforcer, can be the team leader, but he's getting up there in age. Is there a step back? We hope not. Obviously, the Jets have invested heavily in him as well. Just want to see this defense for the first time and see what corner they have turned. They brought a lot of veterans now to try and raise the floor of this team. Has that floor been raised? And again, I mentioned it earlier, the identity is a major factor here that Aaron Glenn needs to establish. Is he going to establish that here by showing off, what this defense can be, especially in the front seven? He invested heavily, brought in his guys. Now we want to see it for the first time in a live game experience. Keys to game day number 5, the secondary. First look at it. Again, I mentioned it a few moments ago. The end of the season last year, the secondary looked a lot better because nobody was throwing down the field because they didn't have to. But the Jets invested, Brandon Stevens a year ago. Nashawn Wright signed to a 1-year contract in this offseason. Azaria Thomas drafted last year in the 3rd round. They brought back Cisco to play safety, brought in Minkah Fitzpatrick. Dane Belton was signed. Dane Belton has looked solid from all accounts in training camp. He's probably your number 2 safety behind Minkah Fitzpatrick on the depth chart. So, likely a starter in that type of situation. Again, just want to see the secondary taking a step forward. Getting no interceptions in a season is absolutely ridiculous. Never been done before. That's not a good thing, obviously. So would it be nice to go out there and, first possession of the game, second possession of the game, you get an interception and get some field goods going into it. You're not going to stop the questions because until it happens in a regular season game, the questions will still come. But, the questions will continue to loom, obviously, if we get to this game and there's, again, another game without interception. We'll just like that whole thing to kind of be put on pause for a little while, get that takeaway, get some field goods, and then wrap things up. I think the starters probably play a possession or two in this game, depending on how the first possession goes. So, limited time to do it, but would be nice to kind of put a stop to all that talk because, again, one of the most embarrassing things to have to talk about is a team that in the NFL not getting an interception. So first look at the secondary, and you just want to see, again, that leadership, that money you put into this team, money you put into the secondary. You brought in Minkah Fitzpatrick. That was a priority transaction. You went out, you traded for him an hour and a half before the training camp window or the free agency window opened. You brought in Minkah Fitzpatrick. That was a priority guy for you. And, also brought in Demario Davis as a linebacker. So you are trying to establish that the veterans coming in are going to try and change whatever we saw last year. This is our first real glimpse at seeing, are things changing? Are they moving in the right direction? Or is it just going to be the same old crap that we've been seeing for the last couple of years? Hopefully, we're moving in the right direction. We're feeling a little bit better about this team as we head into the second week of training camp or second week of preseason. So, again, excited to see this defense for the first time and try and gauge which direction we're moving into. And then after you get through the starters, I would say probably for the rest of the game, the biggest thing we're all watching is what is Cade Klubnik? Can he show something to us for the first time? A player that a couple of years ago was touted as being a potential top overall pick, but definitely a first round type of guy. Last season did not go well at all. Obviously, slipping completely down in the draft boards. Jets got him early in the fourth round. I was actually on with Dane live when the trade up happened and when Cade Klubnik was eventually drafted. But all accounts, he's a rookie. He's doing rookie things. He's having good days. He's having bad days. And the concern here is that the Jets are putting him in a situation where he's going to be the QB2 unless they bring in a veteran. But this is time to really showcase himself. If he goes out there and he, plays a strong game, then I feel like the Jets go into the season saying, okay, we're pretty confident that if this guy needs to see some game action, he won't be the Brady Cooks of the world. He won't be, the Trevor Simeons of the world. You can trust he's going to be able to do something. And you would hope that that's the case for a guy that was so highly touted coming out of college a couple of years ago, or going into the season last year before his injuries kind of sparked up. So really, can Cade Klubnik prove that he's a reliable backup quarterback? If not, the Jets might have to transition their game plan here and see what options are out there in the veteran market and bring someone in as kind of a safety blanket just in case Geno Smith were to go down. But, hopefully that's not a situation we ever have to see ourselves in this season, because Geno Smith has shown a history of being able to play, 15 to 16 games a year. I think last year was one of the only years of his 3 years as a starter, 4 years as a starter, whatever it was, where he had to miss more than 2 games. So promising there that, you probably are going to get a durable Geno Smith, but CJ Mosley coming into the Jets was also one that never missed time. And then all of a sudden, 1 week into his Jets career, has that groin injury that makes him miss his entire first season with the team. So some concerns there, obviously, but I don't know. I feel pretty confident that we're going to get Geno Smith kind of rejuvenated to some extent, with a pretty solid offense coordinator. Historically, Frank Reich has called some good offenses, has had struggles as well, but he has a veteran guy, has a pretty solid supporting cast of playmakers around him with Garrett Wilson, Mitchell, Cooper. We'll see when Sadiq comes back. Plenty of options to get the ball around to. And, what we believe is a stable offensive line front that hopefully Frank Reich can get the best out of. But let me know your thoughts so far and what you're looking forward to hear or see in the Jets' first preseason game of the 2026 season. Do you have any concerns with Cade Klubnik being that number 2 quarterback? That is a major, major issue. But again, if he's able to prove himself today, then as Jet fans will, leave the game feeling a little confident that, if something were to happen to Geno Smith, can this guy come in and provide some sort of relief and, at least make this offense look normal. That's really, we have set our bars so low as Jet fans that normalcy on offense would seem like light years better than what we've seen. We had Zach Wilson as a quarterback. We had Justin Fields as a quarterback. We had Mono Sam, although, Sam has turned out to be a pretty damn good quarterback in this league, winning a Super Bowl last year. But, he had his issues as well with the Jets. But here we are, first preseason game. Again, let me know your thoughts, and I'll cap things off with I'm not going to really give a score prediction because that's kind of silly in a preseason game. But I think we are going to get this offense. It's going to be big set a tone for the season. I think is probably the key to why the Jets starters are playing at all and why Aaron Glenn was so adamant to make it known that they're going to play. I think he's going to want to go out there and just kind of prove from day one things are going in the right direction. And I do think this is a move in the right direction. I think this team has gotten far better than what we saw a year ago. I'm planning on doing, before the season starts, a opening week comparison versus opening week comparison to this year, and just show you kind of like side by side. This roster is better on paper. This roster is better than the team we walked into the season last year. I know we lost Sauce. I know we lost Quinnen, but we replaced it with other players that I think we replaced it with more volume of players that I think overall is going to work out to be a little bit better. In your opinion, how heavily should we weight the individual performances tonight, at least until next week? It's a good question. I'd say I don't think it's so much individual performances. I think it's more as a team. Again, you want to see that this offensive line unit is trending in the right direction. Again, new pieces here with Dylan Parham, but most of the offensive line is intact. Myers, Fashanu, Membu, Tittman, but you want to see this offensive line take a step further. I know we will hype this offensive line, and rightfully so. There's some key pieces: 2 first-round offense tackles, a second-round pick at one of the guard spots, paid some good money for Dylan Parham. 4 or 5 pieces you've invested in, and you should start seeing some positive strides. I want to see this offensive line, beat someone up, like actually, move piles, really get that ground game going. And we only saw it a handful of times last season, at least in my opinion, where I really feel like this offensive line kind of controlled the game. With all the money you've invested in, if this offensive line can control a game, especially against a good defensive line by Tampa Bay, I'm not sure if Tampa start playing their starters or not. I haven't heard anything and seen it myself, but if anyone knows, let me know. But if this offensive line can establish themselves, then you're talking about a situation where, okay, Braylon Allen might actually kind of be something now if he's getting, the ball in these short yard situations, if he's getting the ball just in any type of situation, and now he's got some room to work with. The offensive line is pushing guys up for a yard or two, and now he's got 2 yards of free clearance, and then now he's going into the second level. That's probably the biggest thing. Receiving core, again, similar situation. I want to see the group and how Frank Reich kind of dials up plays. And again, it's a vanilla offense in these preseason games. We are not going to see the full how to beat Tampa game plan in this first week of the preseason. But you have Adonai Mitchell, who has the speed and the size to really be your vertical threat. Jets haven't had that for a long time, especially working with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is a guy who can basically do magic in the middle of the field. And if Adonai Mitchell is luring an outside corner and attracting the eyes and pulling the eyes of one of the safeties, I don't know in Garrett Wilson's entire career. Well, maybe with Devontae Adams, I'll pause on that one. But that was a little weird situation overall. I think it got to a point where Aaron Rodgers was basically just force feeding Devontae Adams at that point in time. So it wasn't really a situation where Garrett Wilson was really benefiting from that. But if Adonai Mitchell is a guy who can stretch the field and open things up in the middle of the field for Garrett Wilson, obviously we're not going to see Sadiq today, but eventually Kenyon Sadiq, Mason Taylor, Omar Cooper, this offense can really kind of do some things. And that's up to Frank Reich to really show that he has the ability to kind of work with that and make that all work. With an offensive line that we're all hyping up to be as good as it can be, there's no reason why Geno Smith won't have the time to really be able to establish this offense. I have a lot of hope for what this offense can be. It's up to all these players to really just take that next step and evolve, and hopefully this offense as a whole evolving into something we can actually be proud of on Sundays. And then to keep it on Dane's question here, defensively, defense is a group thing. Obviously, certain single players do certain things, but this is going to be up to the group on defense to establish that things are moving in the right direction. Jets invested heavily on all 3 phases of the defense with, not household names by any means, but Minka Fitzpatrick has a history of being a pretty solid player. Demario Davis has a history of being a pretty solid player. Osai, he's he's good. He's solid. Angbari, he's good. He's solid. Onyemata's a really good run stuffer. David Bailey, second overall pick. This defense as a whole has good players overall, and now it's time to start seeing, can all these good players kind of mesh into one unit that can move us in the right direction. Dane, appreciate you in the chat, active today. Anybody else who's in the comments or anything like that, just if you feel like if you're not seeing that the chat button open, you have to hit the subscribe button. Once you hit that subscribe button, it takes about a second or two, but you're going to be active to chat. So definitely join in. Dane's giving us some good stuff here, so appreciate him for giving us all this intel here. Regarding the O-line, we need to have them be even greater than the sum of their parts this season. And and you would expect that to be the case. Year two for 4/5 of the offensive line, these guys know each other. And, from all accounts, Olu Fashanu sounds like he's hit his stride with Parham. So the chemistry, from what you're hearing, the chemistry is still there. Yeah, it's got to be better. It's just got to be better. I like what I saw last year. I just feel like to an extent that we're over, we're almost too optimistic on this offensive line. Let's go out there and let's see it. I love what I'm seeing out of Membu. He looks outstanding. Fashanu, I would say right now, I like what I've seen, don't love what I've seen. So need to start loving that. It's not impossible. Brickshaw Ferguson was a very similar situation. His first couple of years, or his first, when we drafted in 2004. So I would say I liked it in 04, liked it in 05, started to love it in 06. I think, if I remember right, it took him a couple of years to get to that point. By year 3, I think he established himself as a pretty solid left tackle in this league. This is year 3 for Fashanu. Can you be on that same trajectory? I don't think he's been bad by any means. I just don't think he's solidified himself as like a top 10 offensive tackle in this league. Would be nice if he takes that next step forward. Membu, I think we saw a lot in year 1. I think he is trending in that direction. Tittman looks like he's trending in the right direction. I think it really just comes down to Fashanu and Dylan Parham on the left side. Can these two guys kind of get that chemistry moving in the right direction very, very quickly? And do we now have an offensive line that we can all be proud of, similar to what Detroit had? They invested heavily in that offensive line as well, and took them a couple of years to get it all hit in stride. Once they got there, and they started moving in the right direction. So again, I like what I'm seeing out of the offensive line. I need to love it. So yeah, that's about all I got. The only other thing I would say, kicking competition, obviously, both these kickers seem to be nailing their kicks by the accounts for what we're reading in training camp. Jason Sanders, Cade York. I think tie goes to Sanders, but again, first time we're going to see these guys kicking field goals, kicking off on kickoffs. I want to see it for the first time. Jets made a little bit of investment in, or a little bit of a decision allowing folk to walk last year. A little concerning there. This team is not good enough to just let good kickers walk out of the building regardless of their age. But they brought in a pretty solid player in Jason Sanders, who, formerly the Dolphins, had a pretty solid career over there. Has shown the range to be able to kick some long field goals, even in Jet Stadium, which is kind of key for where the Jets play, cold weather. He's proven he can do it. I think he probably gets the nod if all things kind of go as a tie. But Cade York is right on his back right now. He's trailing right there. If not, maybe Banjo believes he's ahead of the game. But I think it's pretty established one of these two guys are going to be the kicker. They have 3 games to showcase and the rest of training camp to showcase. And this is our first look at these guys in action. Thanks for the content. Hit the like. Yeah, everybody hit that like button. Subscribe. And most important, guys, for the first time in 2026, the Jets are playing a football game. I don't really count that last game of the season last year. I don't really believe that was football. That was just the Jets putting mercy to the end of a terrible season. Year 1 of Aaron Glenn. Now we're in year 2. I do believe this team should be better. How much better is up to a lot of what I've talked about today. Is Aaron Glenn moving this team in the right direction? Is probably the biggest question. Is the culture really shifting to what Aaron Glenn keeps preaching? A gritty team that's going to control the trenches. That's what this team's identity is, based on the transactions that they've made, the moves they've made, the trading out of Sauce Gardner and kind of prioritizing the draft capital we've used to bring in more offensive skill players. The Jets are kind of playing their hand that they're really trying to transition to being a capable and reliable offense. And in free agency, they went out there and they brought in some veteran guys that they're trying to get this thing turned around. And I do like the moves that were made. The biggest questions for this team, and it seems like a question that we've been asking for decades. Have they found a good coach? Year one did not look promising for Glenn. Now, year two, he brought in his own guys. Brand new coaching staff as well on the defense side of the ball. Have they found the right coach? And have they found the right quarterback? Obviously, Geno Smith is not the long-term guy, but can he at least bring some normalcy to a unit that has struggled so much over such a long period of time? Today's the first day we're gonna find something of it out. We're not gonna get the full picture, but we're gonna get at least a few snapshots that we can all kind of take a look, analyze, and formulate these opinions. But I'm excited. Day one of actually watching Jets football on a television and not just waiting for Twitter to update with some fragmented videos and whatever have you. This is gonna be our first real look at what this Jets offense is under the lights, and this Jets defense, how is it moving in the right direction? If you haven't already, that's all I got today. Let me know your thoughts. Am I too optimistic on what I believe the offense to be? Am I too pessimistic on what I think the secondary's inabilities are going to be, and how we're trending? Or am I just about right? Do you agree with everything I'm saying? Do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts. Leave a comment, and I'll be sure to reply to any of the comments that are coming either now or even later on in the show, or after the show. It's been fun. Looking forward to our first game of the season. If you haven't already, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and most importantly, let's go Jets.